Hey guys, this is a short build video for a Magicka Warden for the Harrowstorm DLC that's coming out or is already out on the PC. Because I've been enjoying playing the Warden a lot lately, it's such a great character for utility and everything. And it really shines in dungeons and 4-man arenas and stuff like that because it brings so many buffs and debuffs that are helpful to the group. So it's perfectly fine for trials as well, obviously, even though there are some slight alterations concerning the skills if I'm going into trials, but I'll just show you the build and how I play it anyway. Alright, let's quickly load the buffs and everything we've got. We've got 32.5k max magicka, 16k health, 10k stamina. Magicka recovery is at 1600, which is pretty good. Spell damage almost 2500, and then spell critical 55.4k, which allows us to use the Shadow Mundo Stone, increasing all our critical damage and by 18% and take full advantage of that. For food, I'm running Witch Mothers here right now because skills are kind of expensive on the Warden, and the extra Magicka recovery certainly helps. If you feel like 16k is a little too less health, I'm totally fine with 16k health, but if you'd like a little bit more, just put a health glyph on either your helmet, chest, or legs, one of the big pieces, and you'll get a bit more health out of that. And then also, as you can see in the resistances, spell resistance is 15k, physical is 9k, but we're running a really cool skill that gives us even more of that. So there we go, up to 20k spell resistance and almost 15k physical resistance, which makes this character quite tanky. All 64 points into Magicka, and then we'll go straight into the skills. So on the front bar, we've got Screaming Cliff Racer. This comes from the Animal Companion skill line. And what this does is you command the Cliff Racer to dive bomb, dealing 8.6k magic damage. If there are more than if you are more than 7 meters away, you can set the target off balance, and then it deals up to 15% more damage based on how far away the enemy is. So this is really cool. You won't notice this at the dummy, unfortunately, because you need to be 7 meters away from the thing, and if you are at the dummy, you're usually a bit closer than that, so your beast trap and everything works fine. So you won't really get the off balance bit when you're practicing at the dummy. But if you are more than 7 meters away and spam it, you can set the enemy off balance and make him take a lot more damage. There you see it, almost 14k when he was off balance. And in dungeons and also trials, this is actually pretty helpful most of the time, because there are many trials where you gotta keep moving, like say Cloud Rest when you're running after Samaja. You can certainly fire in a couple Cliff Racers before you get close enough to proc that off balance effect. Therefore, this is my favorite spammable for the Warden class. It's quite strong, it can set off balance, and it even deals more damage if you're further away, so I love running this skill. Next up is Barb Trap. This is from the Fighters Guild skill line. It's the last thing you unlock. And what it does is it sets a blade down which deals physical damage and then additional physical damage over time. But we're running this mostly for the minor force, increasing all of our critical damage by 10% for the duration of the trap. So we just keep this down at all times to always get the minor force, increasing our critical damage. Because we're built around magic damage, this costs stamina, so it doesn't drain our magicka, our most important resource, so to say. And it also, it deals physical damage, and we're not built around physical damage, so the damage isn't really too bad. It's nice on top of everything, but mostly for the minor force, the critical damage increase while this is active. That's what it's there for. Alright, next up on the front bar is Bird of Prey. This also comes from the Animal Companion skill line. And we're not actively using this. If you'd use it, you gain Major Expedition and increase your movement speed by 30%. But while we have it slotted, we gain Minor Berserk, increasing all of our damage done by 8%. And for dungeons and arenas, this is very nice to have. Especially because you can make a quick escape if you push it. Also in other say Cloud Rest again when you're trying to get the Samurai fast and stuff. It's all good. The speed boost is nice for dungeons, arenas and everything. And the Minor Berserk is what we're mostly having this on the bar for. So we're not actively using this in a rotation, we just got it slotted for the 8% damage increase. Now, if you're in a trial, you are usually being given Minor Berserk by the healers anyway. I think Combat Prayer gives that, if I'm right. And you could slot another skill here. For example, say you could slot Mystic Orb here, or Degeneration, or another dot if you wanted to. But you can also just leave it on, because oftentimes, well, depending on your group, the Minor Berserk uptime isn't there 100%, so it's nice to have on the bar anyway. Okay, next up, also from Animal's Companion, is Fetcher Infection. This is really cool. This is a 10-second dot. It deals 1400 magic damage over 10 seconds. And then the Fetcher flies rip through the enemy's flesh, afflicting them with minor vulnerability for the duration, increasing their damage taken by 8%. So you put this on an enemy, and above their head you'll see not only the flies, but also the minor vulnerability that you're affecting them. And now they'll take 8% more damage from all sources, so from all 3 other members of your dungeon group, or from all 11 other members of your trials group. So you're bringing in a really nice debuff to the table there that is helping everybody dish out more damage and get the boss down a little bit quicker. Alright, and then last but not least, also from Animal's Companion, as all of the skills on the front bar were so far, except for the Barb Trap, is the Blue Betty. This is a Betty Netch that you can call by your side, and it'll restore almost 5k Magicka to you over 25 seconds. And also grant you Major Sorcery, increasing your spell damage by 20%. So as you can see, we're bringing a shitload of buffs and debuffs. We're buffing ourselves here with Minor Force, increasing the crit damage. We're buffing ourselves with Minor Berserk, increasing the damage done by 8%. We're debuffing the enemy with Minor Vulnerability, increasing their damage taken by 8%. And then we're also getting ourselves Major Sorcery, increasing our spell damage by 20%. And also a nice side effect of this is every 5 seconds the net removes 1 negative effect from you. So you just always want to keep it up for the extra Magicka recovery, for the sorcery, the increased damage and everything. And all of these skills do actual damage, right? So we've got the Beast Trap, we've got the Fetcher Flies, which do a lot of magic damage, we've got the Cliff Racer, and then a big part of our damage is our ultimate, the Eternal Guardian Bear, which is that grizzly that I've usually up on our side here. I just turn it off now because every time I try to do a skill on this thing, the bear's going to keep attacking it forever. But yeah, the bear will attack the enemy, and it'll deal a bit of damage at all times. You can check out how much exactly. 2,900 magic damage while it's active every 2 seconds. And then once you summoned it, you can also activate the ultimate for 75 ultimate, which is really, really cheap. And then the grizzly will do 13k magic damage when you do that. It also deals 100% more damage to enemies below 25% health, so it's really, really good in execute also. We've got to double bar this bear, so on the back bar it's also the Eternal Guardian, or else he would go away every time we bar swap. And then on the back bar we've got the Fisher. This is a group of sharks that will spawn after 3 seconds and deal 10k magic damage. And it'll also give Major Breach to the enemies, reducing their spell resistance by 5k for 6 seconds. And also remember, this is an area effect, so you can put Major Breach on a complete ad group that is coming towards you. It looks like this. Got these sharks coming out in front of you. If you try and put them on the enemy and then turn away, they'll come with you though. So if you do it like this and then go over here, they'll spawn over there in that direction. So just keep that in mind. Alright, next up is the Shield, Harness Magicka. This is from the Light Armor skill line. This just conjures a protective ward, basically a shield for 6 seconds. that absorbs 8k damage, and the shield strength is kept at 50% of your max health. While active, the shield also absorbs Magicka though, and it helps you restore a little bit of Magicka as well. Okay, next up, I mean, this is pretty much self-explanatory. It's a shield. You get a shield for 6 seconds and you're protected then. Next up is Expansive Frost Cloak. This comes from the Winter's Embrace skill line. This wraps a thick cloak of ice around you and your allies, not just you, and grants them major resolve, increasing their physical and spell resistance by 5k. So this is really good for your whole group, especially if you're in an arena or in a dungeon or even in a trial. You just put this on and everybody around you who stands in the snowstormy thing kinda will get 5k increased physical and spell resistances and is a lot more tankier then. Next up, also from Winter's Embrace, is Winter's Revenge. This is our ground AoE. Conjure icy shards at the target location to skewer enemies, dealing 2000 frost damage every 1 second for 12 seconds. Enemies that are hit get their movement speed reduced by 30% for 3 seconds, and this ability also has a higher chance to apply the chilled status effect. So it just looks like this. It's a big icy spiky AoE, and everybody inside of it is gonna take 2k magic damage over 12 seconds, and can also get their movement speed reduced, which is also very nice for dungeons if you've got ad groups and everything and you're trying to help a bit with the ad control. Alright, next up then from Destruction stuff, this is our only weapon ability, is Unstable Wall of Elements. This will deal magic damage every 1 second for 10 seconds before exploding at the end for an additional 6k magic damage. Unstable Wall of Fire deals additional damage to burning enemies, and Unstable Wall of Frosts reduces the movement speed and immobilizes chilled enemies. So you can pretty much chill them with this, and then immobilize them with this if you choose to use an ice staff, which you can if you want to. Which brings us to our gear. Oh yeah, potions, by the way. Which mod is I set for food and potions? I just use Essence of Spell Power. Exactly. Mostly for the extra Magicka recovery, because it is really nice and skills on the Warden do cost a lot. Major Sorcery we also get from the pet, but then there's also Major Prophecy, which gives us an extra spell crit rating. So they're quite expensive. If you can't afford them, just go with the Magicka ones for only Magicka recovery, but the Major Prophecy is pretty nice to have in addition to that as well, just to dish out more damage. Alright, let's go into the sets. Master Architect on the front bar, and jewelry. This comes from Halls of Fabrication. You want an Inferno staff here with a flame damage enchant in precise to increase your weapon and spell critical even more. The set itself gives us a K-Max Magicka. That's where we also get Minor Slayer from, increasing the damage done to dungeon, trial and arena monsters by 5%. It gives us an extra 124 spell damage, and when you use an ultimate ability, you and the 2 closest allies within 28 meters gain Major Slayer for 10 seconds, increasing your damage done to dungeon, trial and arena monsters by a whole 15%. So this is quite a good buff, because our ultimate is really cheap. The bear costs 75 ultimate. You can pretty much do it every second rotation. So every second rotation you can get yourself and 2 allies Major Slayer for 10 seconds. Now, I like this set for both trials and dungeons. In dungeons it's definitely even more effective, because the 2 allies are probably not going to be running Lochestes, which gives the same buff, Major Slayer, and I wouldn't run Lochestes in a dungeon or an arena anyway if I was a DPS. However, in trials, I mean, there might be people with Lochestes who take care of their own Major Slayer, but you give it to yourself, most importantly, and then also to another 2 allies. And I'm pretty sure there's gonna be at least 2 allies in there who do not run Lochestes or are Magicka DPS, something like that. So the set is not Like, I heard people say, yeah, but ever since Lucastes, Master Architect isn't so good anymore. Yeah, but it is, really. Because it might always hit another 2 Magicka DDs that get the Major Slayer. Plus you get it yourself, which is nice. I mean, all the Staminas play Lucastes to get the buff for themselves, and you're getting it for yourself. Plus for another 2 people who could possibly not be running that set, or be Magicka DPS and run another set and then get that buff, and then you help out the whole group again. So definitely still good in my opinion. I'm not gonna move away from Master Architect on a Warden because the ultimate is so cheap. You can do the bear every second rotation and you keep on buffing yourself and others with this weapon. So you want an imprecise with a flame enchant, and then you want the jewelry, 1 piece in infused and 2 in bloodthirsty, with spell damage enchants on them. So 1 infused, 2 bloodthirsty. Alright, the next set we're using is the Maelstrom's staff, the Crushing Wall set. You want a spell damage, increased spell damage in a glyph on that, and you want the staff in infused. Now, whatever staff you get from here is up to you. I do actually really prefer the ice staff if I don't have to dish out my top max damage ever, because we're running a normal trial or an easy veteran Craglorn trial or the dungeons on veteran and all that. It's all good for that, because remember, wardens have a passive that gives them increased frost damage anyway, so this is a little bit stronger on a warden than it would be on other characters. Plus you also get the additional damage to your light and heavy attacks like you would with any other stuff. So, and it also helps with the crowd control, as I said. Like, you can immobilize ads pretty easy, chill them. So I do actually like the Maelstrom's ice stuff on my warden a lot. If not, just use the Inferno stuff. If you think that the ice stuff isn't for you, or you heavy attack on your back bar, which I never do, which might get you to accidentally taunt people, then don't use the ice stuff, go for the Inferno stuff. It does a little bit more damage. Wardens have, as I said, increased frost damage, so the difference, well, shouldn't be too humongous, but the choice is yours, really. I'm just saying it because the ice stuff looks cool on a warden. It does work well with the increased frost damage and the whole unique stuff that makes a warden unique. But if you want to run the Maelstrom Inferno stuff, then do that. You can get that one as well. So, now that we've cleared the weapons, let's get into the monster set. It's obviously Zaan's. Why is it Zaan's? I did prefer Valkyn Scoria for a while, but I need that spell critical bonus, sort of. And then Zaan also dishes out excellent single target damage. What it does is, if you hit an enemy with a light or heavy attack, you have a 20% chance to call out a fire beam, which deals 5k flame damage every 1 second for 5 seconds. And then the beam is broken though if you move further than 8 meters away. And it also has a 13-second downtime, so to speak, because it can only occur every 18 seconds, but it only lasts for 5 seconds. It's still probably the strongest Magicka DPS monster set you can get though, which is why I chose to use it, but mostly also because of the extra 804 spell critical bonus, because getting to the 55 % spell crit that we have was hard. And you'll see now running Mother Sorrow. I never thought I'd personally prefer this set on anything because I'm actually not a big fan of this set, but 804 spell crit, 804 spell crit, and another 1800 spell crit, plus the Zaan's 804 spell crit is just enough to get us to the 55% that we're on. Now, if you're running the spell power pods, we'll get a little bit more out of that. So let's check this out. You're at 65 then. So if you run the spell power pods and you can get false gods, which gives you a bit more back and also has 2 spell crit bonuses. It's lacking the 1800. But if you're running false gods and Zaan's, you should probably also get over the 53% that are recommended to run the Shadow Mundos, which helps quite a bit with the actual damage output. So another option here would be False Gods. If you don't want to run Mother Sorrow, I let Mother Sorrow on right now, to be honest, because it's easy. You can just buy it or farm it in Deshaan. It's not very hard to get. But False Gods from the Sunspire trial would be the other top choice here if you're running the spell power potions. Okay, so that's the gear. You've got one piece in medium, one piece in heavy, which are going to be shoulders and heads, doesn't matter which way around. And you want all of them in divines with Magicka enchants. Then the jewelry, as I said, infused, bloodthirsty, all with spell damage enchants. The Maelstrom's ice or inferno stuff and infused with a weapon and spell damage glyph, and the Master Architect inferno stuff and precise with the flame damage glyph. Okay, so much for that. I'll quickly go into the champion points here. This is a basic setup: 62 in Ironclad, 16 in Spell Shield, 51 in Thick-Skinned to reduce damage taken from damage over time effects, and then 56 in Hardy and Elemental Defender, 19 in Quick Recovery, 44 into Warlord, 75 into Arcanist and Tenacity to get more Magicka recovery and increase the amount that fully charged heavy attacks restore Magicka, and then 56 into Tumbling for the roll dodge, and 20 into Shadow Ward for 9% block cost reduction. And then you've got 61 into Elfborn, 64 into Elemental Expert, 10 into Spell Erosion, 13 into Staff Expert to increase light and heavy attacks, and then 66 into Master at Arms to increase all our direct damage attacks. And then we've got 56 into Thaumaturge here. Now, I know that it would be an option to get the Exploiter passive, like put 75 points in here, and get the Exploiter passive to increase your damage against off-balance enemies, since the bird can actually set things off-balance. But since it only sets them off-balance when you're far away from them, I opted not to do that for at least my DPS tests here on the dummy. In actual content, it could probably work out to put 75 points into here and get some more of the off-balance thing, but also I heard that I read it in the patch notes that in Harrowstorm they're reducing the cooldown time or uptime for off-balance anyway. So this is just a safe option. If you wanted to get 75 in here though, just put this one down to 56 and then get a couple more points out of Staff Expert, so you can put them all in here and try that out if you wanted to. Okay, so much for that. I realize I have not gone through the passives in here, and I'm not going to do that right now because I mean, you can read all these and you can understand why we're doing this. Mostly you need all of the Animal Companions ones because they do give you extra damage done for all the Animal Companions ability slotted, which is 10% on the front bar then. And all the others are really good and helpful as well. Green Balance, the only thing you want there is the very last one. Winter's Embrace. Just to get all of them, because we are using the expensive Frost Cloak and Winter's Revenge. Obviously you want all of the Destruction stuff one. If you choose to use an ice stuff, you can just leave that one out here. The downside of leaving this out will be if you do heavy attacks on your flame stuff on your front bar, you won't get the 6% additional damage. But the upside of leaving this passive out is if you accidentally do a heavy attack with your frost stuff on your back bar, you don't taunt the boss and get your whole group killed. Light armor, you want all of these. Medium armor, you only want the first 3 and then the last ones for movement speed. Heavy armor, you only need the first 3. Obviously, vampire, you want all of these in the middle here. This one is only for crouching, and this one is for feeding, but we don't do that really, so you only want the ones in the middle. Fighters Guild, you do want the first ones here. The last one isn't so important, it's only for Cyrodiil. But the others are pretty good, especially since we're using Barb Trap and we have it on our bar. We're not using any Mages Guild on this build, so you don't need to farm that. But Undaunted, you definitely want these, because that's why we're playing the helmet in medium or heavy and the shoulders in the opposite, to get 6% for every type of armor worn, increasing our max health, stamina, magicka. And then also here, activating a synergy from an ally gives us a bit more resources back. We don't need any of these, but we are a Breton on this build, and we definitely want all of our racial passives. Breton works best here because sustain is an issue with Magicka Wardens at the moment, especially if you would decide to go for another rotation which features more deep fissures, because they're fucking expensive. So Breton is, in my opinion, the best one here. Other good options would definitely be High Elf, or maybe even Dark Elf, but not so much Dark Elf. And then you want this one here to have all your potions last 30% longer, and actually have 100% uptime on them in alchemy. Right, so much for that. Now quickly to the rotation. I've made this very simple, because most rotations have deep fissure on the front bar, and they go like deep fissure, spam, spam, deep fissure, spam, spam, deep fissure, spam. But that's really expensive, and the way we're set up right now, I'm not sure we could sustain that even. Plus also, deep fissure has a really long cast time, like this. It takes a while. So what you'd pretty much have to do if you want to go that way, which would give you a bit more damage, but what you'd have to do if you want to go the deep fissure rotation is block cancel it. So as you can see, you can block cancel it, and then it doesn't do the complete thing. But then you block cancel, light attack, other skill. Do it again, block cancel, light attack, other skill. That's very advanced stuff. So that's quite hard to pull through and keep up, especially in actual content. So the rotation I'm giving you here now is a bit simpler. We want to do on our back bar is Winter's Revenge, Deep Fissure, and Unstable Wall. And then on our front bar, all we're doing is a bird, so 2 birds, then the Fetcher Infection, 2 birds, then the Barb Trap, and that's pretty much it. And the bear, obviously, will be ready every second rotation or so, and then you just replace one of the birds with a bear. So, front bar, light attack bird, light attack bird, light attack deep fissure, light attack bird, light attack bird, light attack barb trap swap. And the back bar is always Winter's Revenge, light attack deep fissure, light attack duplicate swap. Then you're back on your front bar, light attack 2 birds, fissure, what the fuck's it called, Fetcher. So 2 birds Fetcher, 2 birds Trap. And then the Betty, just squeeze that in whenever it runs out, really. But use the bear if it's ready, instead of a bird. So back bar again, Winter's Revenge, Deep Fissure, Blockade Swap. Light attack bird, light attack bird, light attack Fetcher Infection. Now come 2 birds, but our bear is ready, so we go light attack bird, light attack bear, light attack barb trap swap. Revenge, Fissure, Blockade, bird, bird, Fetcher, bird, bird, trap. Revenge, Fissure, Blockade, birds, Fetcher, 2 birds, oh not 1 bird, 1 ultimate, because it's ready, so bird, bird, Fetcher, bird, bird, barbed, unless the bear is ready, and you just put that in instead of a bird. And this rotation is actually pretty nice. I've gotten up to 46-ish K on the 3mm dummy with it, so it's definitely strong, and well, perfectly set up for trials and dungeons, but also very viable for trials. Arenas and dungeons, I was going to say, but also very viable for trials. Obviously, DPS on the big guy is going to be a little bit less, than with the full meta setup, but this is very self-sustainable. It's very strong for all kinds of content. So unless you're in a completely optimized endgame group that are running Veteran Sunspire and Veteran Cloutrest and Veteran Asylum hard modes and stuff, but they'll probably tell you what to wear anyway, so. Yep, there you go. That's the build. It's great for 4-man content, also very good for trials, and it hits quite hard as well. I hope you enjoyed this. It's very easy to get as well. The only thing that's hard to get is the 2 stuffs. Everything else isn't too bad. If you can't get Zans, you can always wear Valkin Scoria or Grostar. But Zans is definitely helpful because of the spell crit bonus, especially if you wanna swap Mother Sorrow for False Gods, because then you're gonna lose the 1800 spell crit also. You can run False Gods though, if you wanted to. It's pretty much the same. It gives you a little bit more Magicka back, but it's also harder to obtain because you can't just buy it or farm it overland. So these are your choices. And yeah, hope you enjoy this. It's a lot of fun to play, and it's very strong with all its buffs and debuffs in the dungeons and arenas. And it also brings a lot of good buffs to trials, especially if your group is not perfectly set up. You're taking care of your own buffs. And you're also debuffing the boss with Fissure and Fetcher Infection. So just try it out, have lots of fun doing so, and I hope you like it. See you next time.